the bony surface. Here's the clear zone here, and you can see the ruffled border, which secretes calcium that helps dissolve the bony. Okay, if we talk about, well, one thing that should be obvious from considering bone is there are lots of things, right? Long bones, flat bones, blah, blah, blah. We can talk about bones that are intramembranous or endochondral, right? And when we do that, what we're really talking about is kind of a developmental process, right? So an intramembranous bone, flat bones of your skull, your patella, are bones that just kind of condense out of connective tissue. They do not have a cartilage skeleton, right? And that's what we're looking at here. So you can see you've got lots of trabeculae. What you don't have at this point is the outer cortical bone. The compact bone hasn't been organized, right? For a bone that forms by endochondral ossification, you've got a cartilage, fetal cartilage skeleton. That's there. All right. The first thing you have to do, and this may seem a little bit strange, but in the shaft of the bone, the diaphysis, you have intramembranous ossification around that cartilage. All right. And what that does is prevent diffusion of nutrients. Remember, cartilage is avascular. So basically, you cause the cartilage that's surrounded by this bony collar to necrose. It forms the marrow cavity, the lumpy marrow cavity. At the same time, you have an osteogenic blood invade. You've got blood vessels, nerves, all these osteoprogenitor cells that come in and move up this way. Right? Now we want to focus on the growth of the long bones. Remember, the ends of long bones are called epiphysis, diaphysis, and the conical connecting region, metastasis. We want to focus in on this growth. Well, first, if I'm telling you that this is bone here, the fibrous connective tissue surrounding it in close contact would be called what? Right? As you move up, you get to regions where this fibrous connective tissue is on top of cartilage, is that pericondyum. Okay, so the epiphysis is down here. What we can see, what we don't see is the resting zone very well, where the chondrocytes are just kind of randomly dispersed in the matrix. We're starting to pick up this zone of proliferation, where you have continued division, so it's like a stack of pennies, right? You can see that clearly all the way up into here. So this could be the zone of proliferation. When we start to enlarge the chondrocytes, that's the zone of hypertrophy. And then when they start to calcify their matrix, which is a death sentence, so because remember again, cartilage is avascular, you calcify that matrix, can't get nutrients in the way part of the house by diffusion. You've mineralized your matrix. You die, but you leave behind this basophilic state, calcified cartilage. Then it's those cells that initially got into the shaft of the bone early on with the osteogenic bud. You've got osteoblasts that come up on here and start to lay down osteoid and bone on top of the calcified cartilage. Osteoclasts follow, chew everything up, so ultimately you get bone laid down on what was a calcified cartilage foundation that was remodeled. This is a nice shot of the distal end of the femur that's been cut, and it shows quite a few things in this picture. First, you can see the compact bone quite nicely. You can see this trabecular or medullary bone, right? And notice up at the shaft, it's like you just really cut through. This would be where you've got a lot of red marrow, hematopoietic tissue. But notice down here, it looks thinner. It's because it's begun to hollow out. As you get down into the shaft, you lose the trabecular bone, and the marrow becomes what's called yellow marrow, which is fat. That's why you throw a bone in a soup pot to make good soup stuff. You're pulling out all those yummy fat. The other thing you can see is this scar right here, which would represent the epiphyseal plane. Usually, closes up and ossifies by the time you're in your early 20s. Mine are long gone. I'm getting shorter, not taller. Okay, this is a cross section then through a decalcified bone. So we stuck it in a acidic solution, pulled out all the calcium, and we're left with just kind of a spongy, the osteoid, if you will. Now a fold here, a tissue fold. This would be compact cortical bone. We've got a lot of the cancellous or trabecular bone, so it suggests we're at the end of a long bone, right, where you have red marrow. You can actually see the marrow in between. Same saw in second birth. Oh, this is a long bone, and we're down in the shaft, the diaphragm. We've got one little bit of trabecular bone, but we don't have that cancellous appearance that we had in the last. If you looked at high power, all these white holes would be difficult. Again, as Nigel pointed out, the circular profiles you see here, the larger ones are going to be what? Conversion canal, right, which are the center of the osteon conversion system. At higher power, you can see smaller lacunae of the osteon. Remember, think of an osteon, particularly in a long bone like this, as a cylindrical setup that runs the length of the bone that's composed of circumferential concentric lamella. And you start out and you go in. This perforation right here would be a Volkmann canal or perforated canal. It's the way that you get things into the marrow and a hematopoietic tissue, get developing blood cells out into circulation. Last but not least, we've got a section of ground bone that can be very instructive. All right, so here we can see conversion canal. Here, connection between two, so this would be a perforated. Let's focus on we've got a conversion canal. You can see the osteocytes in there, lacunae. Kind of have to hallucinate the fibrous canaliculum, but they're there. Note that this canal are greater diameter than this one or that one. Speak to the age of the osteoid. They start at the outer and fill their way in. So when you've got a larger conversion canal, it's a younger osteoid. You can also tell that because you've got these circumferential lamellae here, which are interrupted by this one or by this one. So this one was laid down first, then one was laid down here, interrupted by this. So you've got incredible amount of intense metabolic activity going all the time. Things such as weight-bearing exercise can have a big effect on bones, right? So in spite of the fact that other than the enamel in your teeth, bone is the hardest structure in our body, it's incredibly dynamic. The last one. So, if I remember right, next week we'll be doing muscle, nerve, and blood. Have a good weekend.